Welcome to the Talking Book Voices, the podcast. Get ready to embark on the adventure with us as we dive into and celebrate the magic of the Texas Talking Book program. Let's raise our voices together and make the world of literature accessible for all. The Texas Talking Book program is a division of the State Library and Archives Commission and serves as a regional library for the National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled, a division of the Library of Congress. The Talking Book program provides specialized library services to individuals who have a qualifying visual, physical, or reading disability, such as dyslexia. In each episode of the Talking Book Voices, we'll delve into the heart of the program, uncovering its history, sharing inspiring stories, and exploring the vast collection of materials it has to offer. We'll bring you the latest updates, interviews with program experts and patrons, and useful tips to make the most of this invaluable program for Texans and beyond. So whether you're an avid reader, someone who with a print disability seeking accessible materials, or just curious to learn about this great program, this podcast is made for you. Don't forget to visit us at www.texastalkingbooks.org for more information. So let's begin the Texas Talking Book Voices, a podcast by the Texas State Library and Archives Commission.
Did you know the Talking Book program offers bi-monthly author talks? Well, we do. You don't need any special technology. All you need is a phone. For more information, call us at 1-800-252-9605. Hi, podcast listeners. My name is Laura Jean, and I've been a Reader's Advisory Librarian here at TBP for 10 years now. Before that, I've worked as a library assistant at various different academic and public libraries for 12 years.
And my name is Margaret. I've been a Reader's Advisory Librarian here at the Talking Book program for a little over a year now. When people hear my title and what sort of library work I do, there's always one big question, and that is, what is Reader's Advisory? One of our major responsibilities as Reader's Advisory Librarians is to know about the different types of books that are available to our patrons. One way to categorize books is by genre. What exactly is genre fiction? For our purposes, a genre is a group of books that all have a similar subject matter, like romance or horror. So, those creepy, gory, bloodfest books, huh?
Hey, horror is a lot more than just gore and blood. In fact, some horror books don't have any of that at all. Here are some general qualities of horror fiction. First, it's a story intended to scare the reader. Now, that doesn't have to be gore. It can be subtly creepy. What one person finds scary is very personal. What scares me may not be the same thing that you find scary.
One word: spiders.
Well, we're in agreement there anyhow.
All right. Well, what else characterizes the horror genre?
Well, the tone or the mood is very atmospheric. There's often a sense of decay or of ruin. The main characters are generally sympathetically flawed. You get they're struggling with personal demons. You often see that reflected in horror that is threatening to them. The pacing, well, it can be all over the place, depending on the book. Sometimes it may start out slow, but builds steadily towards a horrific encounter. But other times it's fast-paced the entire way through. And the language or writing style is generally very descriptive in nature, and it uses words that help evoke that atmospheric mood or tone.
Okay, but why on earth would people want to read horror? Why do they want to be scared? I mean, why would you want to read a book about a bunch of killer spiders?
Well, I wouldn't. Not for me. That's too scary. Or it wouldn't be fun scary. It would be too close to my own personal fears. Although that is one reason some people like to read about things that particularly scare them. It's a way to fight those fears. And other reasons are that horror reminds us of the darkness within us all. For others, it reminds us that we're all just one step away from uncertainty, loneliness, and death. Horror rips that veil away. And, for a lot of fiction readers, it can provide an escape from reality. I know I read a lot of horror during the pandemic. I think it was my way of saying, oh, you think reality is really bad right now? It could be so much worse. This isn't bad. No, vampires killing off humanity? That's bad.
But also not as real as the pandemic.
Exactly. So for some readers, it's an escape from the reality of your life.
I also want to add here, vampires are not scary. They are sexy and they sparkle in the sun.
Okay, I'm actually glad you brought up Twilight. There is a big difference between horror and paranormal romance. In paranormal romance, it's generally from the monster's point of view. They are sympathetically flawed, and they're generally the main character and not the antagonist. But in horror, well, until recently, where the anti-hero monster has recently become more popular, the monsters were the bad guys. They are not sympathetic. They are not the main character. They are certainly not a romantic interest.
All right, I see the difference, but there's some overlap there, right? I mean, romance and horror are both emotion genres, if I'm not wrong.
Oh, no, they absolutely are. Personally, I like both romance and horror. Both are all about evoking an emotional reaction from the reader, whether it's that sweet feeling you get from a meet-cute or the spine-tingling sense of unease caused by a ghost story. And these genres are referred to as emotion genres because they all have that in common.
I like romance and other emotion genres generally, but I just don't like violence in my books.
Well, and that's perfectly understandable. As I said earlier, books do not require gore or violence to be horror. Not all horror is splatterpunk.
Splatter what?
Sorry. It was a term used in the 1980s to refer to a subgenre of horror that was intentionally violent, sexually explicit, with lots of profanity. Now we tend to refer to it as visceral or extreme horror. And these books turned their back on traditional horror. They tend to be deeply subversive, with no holds barred. Everything is in excess, and taboos are meant to be broken. In this case, the heavy violence, gore, graphic sex scenes, and profanity are used to enhance the effects of the horror action in the books. Everything is amplified, and it's all set at a very fast pace. And that frenetic intensity, it doesn't let up until the last page. In other subgenres of horror, you've got folk horror that uses elements of folklore to invoke fear and foreboding. The setting is usually rural or isolated. The protagonists tend to be naive outsiders coming up against superstition, folk religion, paganism, sacrifice, or the dark aspects of nature. The focus is generally on the beliefs and actions of the people rather than any supernatural or paranormal element. And then you've got cosmic horror, that otherworldly horror. Think Lovecraft, Cthulhu, and the Elder Gods, which is not too far different than dark fantasy, which combines elements of fantasy and horror. Sometimes the setting is realistic, and sometimes it's fantastical. Then you've got body horror. These are books that feature psychologically disturbing violations of the human body or of other creatures. These may present as mutations, mutilation, diseases, or unnatural movements of the body. These books are generally pretty violent, so make sure you're okay with that. And then you've got, demonic possession, haunted houses and ghosts, monsters like vampires, zombies, and witches. And then you've got psychological horror, and these are the books that feature the human monsters in our midst. Serial killers. They're generally told through the antagonist's point of view. You tend to get an insider's view into their thoughts and motivations. These tend to appeal to readers who want a more realistic setting. No vampires, shapeshifters, or the like for them. This is one of my favorite subgenres, humorous horror. Most horror books do tend to include elements of comic relief. It's a way to depressurize after a particular scary scene. But humorous horror novels often combine satire with horror elements. Grady Hendrix is a particularly well-known author for this. Short story collections. Horror fans are actually more likely than most to read short story collections. It's a way to read everything by your favorite author, but also a good way to be introduced to new authors in the genre. And then you've got Christian horror.
Wait, what?
I know, it sounds counterintuitive, right? But it's a real genre, and it's growing in popularity with authors like Frank Peretti leading the way. You've got nonfiction horror. These are great for those readers who want to know more about horror films or the actual potential for something paranormal in real nature, like zombies. And another one of my favorites, meta horror. Meta horror is a self-aware style where the narrative comments on the horror genre itself, its tropes, or the very act of storytelling. This can involve characters acknowledging horror conventions, like those in slasher films, or the narrative structure itself breaking the fourth wall and directly interacting with the reader. There's really been a renaissance in horror within the last decade or so.
Well, okay, fine, I guess. I could maybe try a horror book. Maybe. How do I choose one to try?
The best way to determine if you might like a horror novel is to pick something short, like a collection of short stories. The time invested is low, so if you don't like it, 2 hours of your time isn't the kind of commitment that an entire book would enact. You can also try a genre blend anthology. You like romance, so maybe something that includes an element of romance, but stays true to the parameters of horror.
Well, there we have it. Laura Jean's given us some insight into the horror genre. Perhaps you're already a fan, or maybe you've never touched so much as a Goosebumps book in your life. So here's a question for you. What is it about horror that you like? What's your personal tolerance for terror? Do you have a specific type of monster or horror that scares you? Vampires or zombies? Or are monsters not your thing? Do you prefer evil plants or swarms of killer bees? Perhaps it's more realistic horror that's your preference. Whatever tingles your spine, we can help you find a book that incorporates those features. Thinking about what specifically you enjoy about a book or a genre helps us make the best recommendations, and it helps us think outside the box to help you find the books in similar genres or from similar authors you might enjoy. If you are a patron of the Talking Book program and would like to receive personalized reader's advisory, please reach out to us. You can contact us by calling 1-800-252-9605 or by sending an email to tbpral@tsl.texas.gov. Our dedicated team is ready to assist you and provide the recommendations tailored to your interests and reading preferences. We look forward to helping you discover new and exciting books. Well, that's just about all the time we have. I hope you take this opportunity to ask us for tips on what to read next. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on TBP Voices.